It's your girl, Shawn, Southern erotic author of the Broken Soul series, host and unlicensed therapist of the Black Writer Therapy Podcast, a show dedicated to amplifying the voices, stories, and experiences of Black women writers with the audacity to thrive in an industry that hasn't always been so welcoming. Join me as I welcome a new writer friend every Thursday at 7:30 a.m. for candid conversations about writing, publishing, and finding harmony in their writing lives. You can stay in the know by following the podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Feel free to message me on either platform. I love hearing from my listeners. And if you like what you hear and would like to support the show, you can recommend this podcast to family and friends, leave a rating and or a review. Become a paid subscriber to the How Are You Healing Sis newsletter on Substack. Or you can join my Sunrise Tea crew by gifting me a box of my favorite tea. Welcome to this session of Black Writer Therapy. I wonder who's in my waiting room today.
Well, Ella, today we have Emanuelle Marachal sitting in your waiting room. This insightful writer brings greetings from South Italy with love, a curious French Cameroonian multilingual fashion professional writing unapologetically about the industry she is working in and the African diaspora in Europe. Today she wants to talk about how being a Black woman isn't a question of color. It's a question of experiences.
Hello, Emanuelle. How are you doing?
I'm good, Vicky. I'm good. And you?
I am really good. Thank you so much. This is like the first time I've had anyone who hasn't written a book, but is a freelance writer. So it's like nonfiction, articles, and things of that nature. And we met on Substack, and I just found you delightful, in your words, to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am Emanuelle Marachal. I'm a French Cameroonian freelance writer, and I'm currently based in the south of Italy. Yeah, and I write mainly about fashion and culture because I actually work in the fashion industry as a sub-editor, because being a fashion writer, you always need a job. This is my case, not a job to pay the bills. Yeah, and so I have that Substack called the Journal de Curioso. That is a Substack that I open to talk about fashion from the point of view of an underrated fashion professional, but also to talk about the African diaspora in Europe. And I started it because I've actually been writing about the African diaspora in Europe for a while. I started on Instagram first, but it's not necessarily the right platform to write long form. Mm-hmm. And it tired me to also do all the graphics because I'm not really gifted for that.
Gotcha.
And so Substack felt like the right place to start writing about my family story because, as I told you my name first, for those who are not Francophile, it is a very French name. It doesn't sound Cameroonian at all, and that makes people confused. So that's why I actually started telling my family story and to explain Blackness in France, because I happen to be in France for a reason, and then expand on other experiences on Blackness in Europe, because I said, yeah, I'm French, but I'm living in Italy, and I've also lived in Germany and the UK. So that gave me a way to different type of Blacknesses, and actually realized that we actually don't know each other in Europe as Black people.
That is interesting that you would say you don't know each other. I always think about it, and I'm going to be 100% transparent. I've never been, right? I just look at the map. So if you have an extra bed, I might pop up on your door. Knock. Okay. Yeah. But really, it looks like everything is so close together, because here in the States, if I want to go to, say, Seattle, Washington, and I'm here in South Carolina, it's like 2,500 miles away. And that's like a plane ride. But it seems like in Europe, like things are so close, you could hop on a train and be in another country in 30 minutes or so. And I may be like
undermining that, but it seems like things are.
No, you are right. It's really close. And we also have, as French people and people in the EU, we have the privilege to be able to travel without a visa in each country part of the EU. That's a big advantage. But at the same time, it's not said that when you're Black, you also have to consider that, unlike maybe in the US or in the UK, we are the second, third generation. So we didn't have time to build wealth yet to be able maybe to travel as much, even though it's starting now. And also there is the language barrier. That's why we don't know each other. So there may be information circulating around in French, in Portuguese, in Spanish, but not everyone speaks all these languages.
I didn't. And see, again, this is my privilege of being an African diasporic person in the US. The Black people I run into wherever I travel in the US speak English, and there's no kind of, we can't figure out what we have in common versus what we don't have in common. And I didn't even think. And you are really pulling out all of my ignorance and all of my, really showing me my blind spots. And for that, I thank you, because it's not something I considered. Wait, there's a huge language barrier because every country speaks a different ding dong language. Wow.
That's the reason why when I did my Instagram first, I started in English, because I was like, if I write in English and instead of writing in French, for example, I'd have a bigger audience. And that's what happened. I was very surprised that most of the people that wrote me first were Italians. And this is where I discovered really the Black Italian community, for example. I've learned a lot of things, and because it's a thing to live in a country, for example, because the expat experience, for example, that I had in Germany was how can I say that? You stay between expats. You don't really mix with, you mix with German people, but they're mostly white. When I was in Munich, I barely saw a Black person. And I was like, where are they?
Wow, I know they're here.
Please tell me, where are they? And what was funny is that the Black people I saw were also expats. So I didn't see like a Black German. I saw Black expats that were from other countries. So that makes the experience, not flawed is not the right word, but you're not fully experiencing the country if you actually don't see people that also look like you, in my opinion.
I love that. I'm going to jot that down. That's definitely something to take away. You're not fully experiencing a country unless you see people from that country, you're saying, who look like you.
Yeah. Because Black people are everywhere. It's not, especially that Germany had a colonial past too. So it's not a country that Cameroon was a German colony before it became French and English. They were there, and you have a lot of Cameroonian there too. But the fact that I didn't see one, I was like,
that is weird. But maybe not Germany and its past. I don't know. But I'm sure they're Black Germans.
Yeah, they are definitely Black Germans. You have plenty of history. When I was doing that Instagram, I discovered plenty of Afro-Deutsch. That's how they called Afro-Deutsch.
Okay.
And that were living during the Second World War. And actually the oldest one, I think he was 95 or 96 when he passed away a couple of years ago.
Wow.
So you discover all this kind of story. And because obviously I speak Italian, I speak French, I speak English. My German is rubbish, but I still understand some stuff.
I think you're allowed to have one rubbish language, really.
My German is rubbish, but I still, when I was doing the research, there is this YouTube channel that introduced me to the oldest Afro-Deutsch. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that. And it's so interesting to have that. And it was in German. And at the time I put the subtitle, YouTube sometimes give you the possibility to have the subtitle in English. I was like, thank God for the subtitles, even though they are also rubbish because they are automated. But I was like, it helped me have an idea of what it meant to be German during Second World War and after it finished, all these kind of things that I didn't know. And starting thinking that they're always in the history books, we are not there. We're not.
Right.
So,
and it doesn't matter what country, they have completely taken Black people out of the history books, unless they were slaves or dying.
Yeah. Exactly. And in Europe, mostly, I've seen it in France, in Italy, in all the countries I've lived, is that in the books, when they talk about Blackness, it's always American one. And in the media in general, it's always Black American experience.
What?
Because, yes.
How do you deny your own Black population?
This is it. So when I studied, for example, in France, I have a special English, I was in a special class for English. It was called European section. And I had history classes, and we talked a lot about, I heard about Martin Luther King. I heard about Rosa Parks. And I was like, us?
Hello? Were there no like Black French people, revolutionaries and things of that nature?
And they don't tell that. So that's why there is, how can I say, a kind of schizophrenia. I don't know if it's the right word, schizophrenia in Europe in general, for people to think that, oh, slavery was in the US. Us, we are better because we freed them, especially French people, because we have a lot of the countries have shaped their ways on the French system. Like, it's the same for the US, actually. If you look at how the US is the constitution. Yes. Based on the French one. In Italy, it's the same. There is a thing where they take pride in that. All men are equals. No, you created something called the Code Noir, Black Code. That is that reference to how you need to treat your slave in the colonies. So please.
And then the Black codes were here in the States as well.
Okay.
And they were, how to make sure your slave never ran away.
Yeah. So they started everything. And then because in the States, you have slavery in the country with the people, but us, it was so we have what we call dom-tom. So these are overseas territories in the Caribbean, French Caribbean, like Martinique, Guadeloupe, all these places where you have slaves. And because they don't happen to be in France, that's also what they want you to believe, that they were not in France. But actually, if you look really, you will find some of them.
Yes, so, I would imagine, because who's turning down free labor and doesn't matter where you're getting it from, or who's going to turn that down.
But they did it a little bit, but you wouldn't know it. So you have to dig for it. Yeah, so I ramble a lot.
No, that's okay, because that's where we are. And I think that all of this research and where you've lived and all the things that you've spoken of, I would imagine have a lot to do with your writing style and what interests you in writing. So I think that gives kind of the backstory of Emanuelle and how she came to be the writer that she is. So you've already told us that you speak 1 million languages. You're well-traveled, and that you write about fashion and culture. So now I'm going to get into kind of our first segment. But before I do that, I have to ask you my favorite question. And it is, how are you healing today?
I'm healing nicely because I have an amazing therapist to do so.
I love it. I love it.
And writing also has helped me a lot. I've noticed that writing has been, a really good way for me to channel my pain. In 2021, I lost someone I really loved. I wrote about it. It wasn't meant to be published anywhere, but it was just in Instagram stories, because when that person passed, I wasn't actually there and I didn't know who to contact. So I just started to recall our stories together each time I came to visit or we saw each other. And what happened is that the mother and the sister contacted me saying they saw my stories. And I couldn't believe it because they didn't follow me. No.
Wow.
They didn't follow me. So they found my stories probably because we had some people in common, something like this. And they asked me, please, can you keep on writing about him, because it makes him feel alive. And I couldn't believe it because my reaction was, probably they will ask me to stop because it's their son, it's their brother. So I understand it. They asked me to stop. And no, they were like asking me to write about it. And now I have a small book that I still need to send them back about it was a love story and a friendship story too.
Yes, the best kind then. That's the best kind. I'm so sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, I have that. And yeah, there is also a thing I did, but that was I used to host a podcast in Italian about Blackness in Italy. And I told my story with fibroids there because it happens a lot to Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And that also was very cathartic for me to do because, yeah, fibroids is the bane of my life, literally. It's the bane of my life.
So I think that what I'm hearing is that sharing for you is healing. Sharing your pain, sharing your story, just sharing and hopefully helping other people is how you heal. Did you know those stories about you and the person you lost would help?
No, I was just like, I'm living my grief by myself because I was in London. He was in Italy when he passed, and I wasn't there. And in London, there was no one I knew with whom I could share about it. So I was just like, I just rather write it. First, I also had my notes on my phone where I started writing things. And then I shared on Instagram just casually like that. And they were like letters. I addressed them to him. This is this day today. And this is where, do you remember that day when you did that or did that? Things like this. And when I started seeing the traction I got, there's this family, then his friends. And then because he was, how can I say that? He loved women. So obviously all the exes also contacted me. So there was like a little group of exes, you know.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting that you gave solace to so many people just by sharing.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it myself because I was just like, that's my little selfish thing that I'm doing. But I realized it was helping people. And that's the power of writing that sometimes you say, yeah, I know when I read something by something else, oh, it's powerful to me. But as soon as you write yourself, you may be not realizing the effect you have on other people.
Yeah, that's the thing. We always think that we're the exception to the rule that writing is going to be powerful enough to touch someone else. Our writing is the exception, not powerful enough to touch a bug, just me. But that's what I was going to say, that your words have great power and you seem to be using them for like really great purposes, not just your healing, but helping other people heal as well. Thank you for sharing that.
Right now, being in that newsletter word with Substack and everything, there is a lot where they say to take out the I in your writing. And I'm like, to make it sound more literary, maybe. And I'm like, sometimes the I is what actually makes people connect. It's not necessarily something very self-centered, but actually when you share your experience, you're actually mirroring other people. We might not have exactly the same experience, but you can find similarities in mine.
Yeah.
And that helps you. So sometimes when I see that, when they give this type of advice, you should say it depends on the style you want to write in.
I find that I'm reading all of these things and there's no right way to do what you're doing. And it depends on, why you're doing what you're doing. If you're writing as a kind of, hey, I'm sharing my story, this is what I'm doing, then you have a completely different style and a completely different approach. Say your Substack, which is personal and you're sharing. And I loathe when folk tell writers, you need to write this way, and you need to maybe take this out and do that and work on this tone. And I'm like, especially when you're telling Black writers, we don't write like everybody else.
No. Not at all.
We don't, for the most part, right? We don't write like everybody else. Most Black writers I know are very character driven. And if they're writing fiction, and if they're not, then they're very much emotional and lyrical. Yeah. And regardless of whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, Black women, I will say, tend to be more lyrical in our approach to writing. And so there's a rhythm that we're looking for. So don't tell me how to write my stories or whatever I'm writing. Yeah. Leave the I in, because that's where you're right. That's where the connection is, I think. Mm-hmm. So we are here at segment 1, intentional writing that heals. And you talked about the writing that you did as a way of healing yourself. And so I wanted to ask you, what's the most cathartic piece, because you are a freelance writer, what's the most cathartic piece you've written to date for you?
So it's a very recent one, actually.
Okay.
And it's entitled Beyond the Myth of the Parisian Woman.
Okay.
And it's a piece I wrote. Actually, I wrote it first in Italian for a journalist that was on Substack in Italian. And I thought, okay, why not translate it in English? Because I think it's something that is a topic that is, in a sense, universal, because I'm talking about the Parisian woman. But I guess that if you're Black in any context, or if you are non-white in any context, there is always an idea of how a certain woman should be. Meaning, and I guess that the beauty standards you're not the beauty standards. And I guess that story reflected that. So I started with my personal story to explain where I came from to the readers, because my name is an enigma for a lot of people. When they hear me first without seeing me, and when they see me physically, they're like, oh, what is it? What happened?
I thought you'd be taller or something. That's what I usually get. I thought you'd be taller. Sorry. I have a really tall voice.
Because you don't have an accent. Some people get surprised when I say, I was actually born in Cameroon. They're like, what? And I'm like, why not? Why not? Why is it surprising? But you don't look like. I'm like, yeah.
What do they expect Cameroonian people to look like?
That's the question. So so this kind of question puzzles me a lot, because I'm like, even from other Black people, because they assume that I am Caribbean, for example. Yeah.
Because but they can't put you in France. They can't see you in France.
Yeah, you probably have this name because Caribbean people tend to have like the name of the owner of the plantation. They have these names, and probably they assume that I am Caribbean. And I don't know, probably, I don't know, there is probably something that maybe there is the thing of maybe not being Black enough or not African enough, or sometimes, yeah.
Oh, yes. Look, yes, that part. So they don't think you're not Black enough, you're not African enough, you're not French enough. What? Sorry, Emanuelle, you're just like, I don't know. Wow, I'm telling you, ignorance is bliss, because it's just things I don't think about as an American. And I'm just going to give myself a little bit of grace here and say, I think Black Americans have a lot on our plates to think about. So Black American women, we have a plate and everybody else's plate that we're carrying. But still, this is making me so much more cognizant of things I need to be cognizant of, things that Black women everywhere need to be cognizant of, because it seems like we're having very similar experiences wherever we are.
We do. It's just the context that is different. So obviously the experience is slightly different. But I also like to stress on the context, because like I said, the Black experience is mainly American in the media, right? When then you try to explain your experience, for example, France has a lot of cases of police brutality against Black people and North African people also. But it's something that is not widely known abroad. We have our Trayvon Martin, we have our Eric Garner, we have them. But we have our riots too. But France has the whole, let's shut everything down on lock, because you're telling this and I don't even hear it on NPR. No, because I think so I think when people report, that's also the thing. That's why I say that America has the thing to be it's the powerful nation, right? It's the nation that is leading the world at the moment. And France is, a powerful nation, but it is a powerful nation because it is in the EU. Let's be clear about that. It's not because...
Let's be clear.
No, because they believe, without the EU, please, calm down.
Okay. Let's be clear. Yes. Okay. So they're only powerful because they are affiliated with everybody else in Europe.
Yeah. That's why they created the EU, to be powerful, because they realized they weren't by themselves. So that's the reason. So what I was saying is that, yeah, since the Black experience is the link to the power the US has in the world, obviously the media will report on that. Whereas it's a question of powers. Whereas in other countries, they won't necessarily report on that. And also there is the language question, because you can have your news reporter based in a country of Europe, but if this news reporter is not versed in this type of questions, report will be biased. And also, actually, I'm quite sometimes when I read some reports about what was happening in France, I was like, yeah, it's always seen in a very there is always this bias that France is this cultured nation. All the stereotypes I'd say about France. So that's why basically I chose to talk about the Parisian woman specifically, because she embodies the fashion industry and the luxury world. And this woman, she's white, she's bourgeoise, she's Parisian, and she lives in a certain area of Paris apparently, and then the rest of Paris and the rest of France, whatever.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you have agreed to read this for us, which I'm excited to hear. Okay. Very good. I'm going to mute myself, and so that you don't hear me going, what?
Okay. Let's start. Okay. Beyond the myth of the Parisian woman, Despite's File was previously published in Italian on La Moda il Sabato Mattina, the currently posted newsletter by ex-Vogue Italia's senior fashion news and No Gucci's head of communication, Federica Salto. In her Pitch Perfect column, she allowed writers to write about a topic of their choice. I picked the Parisian-French woman stereotype not because it is an obsession, but instead because I think it is necessary to have it etched that this thick-thin cliché is damaging and contributing to perpetuating the false image of France. Despite Emmanuel Macron's disillusions that France is a political and diplomatic powerhouse worldwide, the country still holds significant soft power through the culture of francophonie and luxury. The Parisian-French woman stereotype is, after all, a marketing tool to promote an idea of France and Frenchness worldwide. So it is no wonder she's associated with fashion and the luxury industry. Emanuelle Marachal is a very French name. Reading it, nobody could imagine that I was born in Cameroon and grew up in an interracial family. I'm Black like my mother, my father is white French, and my brother is mixed race. Since childhood, I have always known that being French and something else was possible. In Douala, I went to a French school where pupils were predominantly Black, but there were also other children with different backgrounds. I went to schools with friends who were Greek, Lebanese, Indian, and Congolese. Conversely, my parents' friends were Cameroonians, Malians, Chadians. Some families look like us. Nonetheless, I wouldn't describe Cameroon as a diversity heaven. I am aware, though, that my experience is a fruit of privilege because my father was a white expat. When I was 12, we returned to France after 5 years of living in the diversity bubble in Cameroon. We were in 1999, and I couldn't grasp why nobody from my classmates to teachers could reconcile that I could be both French and Cameroonian. Not only did they not understand my high grades, because an African person is obviously less intelligent than a white one, but there also was disbelief about my fluency in French and differential treatment when it was my mother who participated in school meetings instead of my father. But above all, the mockery I received about my appearance made me immediately understand that I wasn't the norm for them. It was a real cultural shock that taught me that France, in these years, wasn't able to understand that Frenchness wasn't synonymous with whiteness. But what does a 12-year-old non-white preteen do in such a context? She assimilates. In French, the verb s'assimiler is a word I loathe because it refers to the concept of assimilation, according to which immigrants and their children are forced to forget their roots because French culture must prevail over the colonized one, as if the mission civilisatrice never stopped. I never identified with the myth of the French woman or the Parisian woman. Writer and Milan France editor-in-chief Alice Pfeiffer explained in her book Je ne suis pas parisienne, éloge de toutes les Françaises, I'm not Parisian and not to all French women. The Parisian woman has one face, a Parisian woman invented and embodied year after year by celebrities that are the carbon copy of one another. This Parisian woman co-opts fashion's narration and reveals the absence of multiplicity in the national representation. The Parisian woman seemed more like the girl next door when fashion democratization happened through the internet in the 2010s. Before, she was a famous actress or a singer like Brigitte Bardot, Françoise Hardy, Marion Cotillard, or Vanessa Paradis. From the 2010s on, her name was Caroline de Maigret, a model and music producer who published in 2014 with her friends Sophie Masse, Audrey Diwan, and Anne Béret, How to be a Parisian Wherever You Are, Style and Bad Habits. On the book cover, there is the distinctive Caroline de Maigret silhouette in a rock-chic uniform composed of skinny jeans, an oversized blazer, and ankle boots. A cigarette and coffee complete the look. Caroline de Maigret is the epitome of the cool Parisian woman who would almost make you forget her aristocratic background if not for her patronym. Her friends, instead, don't have a last name that gives away their belonging to a privileged social class. Still, they respectively are a film producer, a director, and a writer. So they all belong to the cinema and arts world. I remember giggling when reading the book as an ironic handbook about the quintessentially Parisian art of being a woman. It contains clichés aplenty. Another figure that emerged in these years was the blogger turned entrepreneur Garance Doré, who in 2015 published her book, Love, Style, Life. Garance Doré embodies the southern French girl who goes to Paris to make it. Born Marilyn Fiori in Corsica to an Italian father and American mother, she has an intriguing profile in the French context as she doesn't match the Parisian girl stereotype. She began her book by dedicating it to her Moroccan grandmother, Tamament, who she describes as follows. My grandmother always dressed in bold colors and prints, bright frocks that complemented her long red henna-tinted hair. She loved dressing up, but she had to work within the strict codes that were imposed on her. Don't show a lot of skin, play humble. About her mother, instead, she wrote, my mother is the opposite. She's a free, modern woman, and she wants the world to know. She wears tight jeans and irons her hair, and every outfit is perfectly thought out. Her description of the two women highlight the concept of assimilation culturelle, cultural assimilation. The grandmother's style recalls the traditional shackle, whereas the mother's is free and modern, which somewhat reminds of the Parisian woman. French society has taught entire generation of non-white people to approach their roots as something exotic. And Garance Doré, even before Jeanne Damas, is undoubtedly the French blogger influencer who built her entire career on the Parisian French woman concept.
Thanks so much, Emanuelle, for sharing that piece with us. If you would like to hear the rest of Emanuelle's reading of this really insightful piece, then be sure to join my Black Writer Therapy Substack and make sure you join at the paid for 1 year level to get access to all these little extras and so much more.
Wow. I'm glad I had my mic off because I was, yeah, that's right. Oh, so yeah, your face while you were reading that. I wish everyone could see it because you emote so beautifully throughout your face. And so when you were reading certain parts, I could see you like this. Because you had that look like, and this is the part that really pisses me off. That's what yeah, it was great. Man, I have pages of notes. Pages of notes. It's beautifully written. Thank you so much for sharing. I love the way you read it. I love your voice. Your writing voice is beautiful. I can see why so many people are like, oh, I'm going to definitely subscribe to her Substack. You have a beautiful writing voice and it's very personable and accessible even.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for sharing. Okay, I'm getting ready to dig into this the myth of the Parisian woman. Okay, here are my notes. So you started out talking about these beauty standards. Yes. Mm-hmm. And the beauty standard is, of course, white, then is there a hair color that's necessary for this mythic Parisian? As long as she's white and thin, and is she tall?
Yeah, she's
and
tall.
luxurious.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. And so you said this is the beauty standard. And I find that so sad. I find it sad. And not because white people, white French people, white any people can't be beautiful, but to say that they are the standard, or that there is a standard of beauty, I think in and of itself defines what beauty is. It defies beauty. You know what I'm saying?
It is even more ridiculous. So I'm going to add something, because one of the people I mentioned in the essay, Alice Pfeiffer, she's actually French British and Jewish. And she dedicated a chapter in her book to Jewish women, because she said, even us, the Jewish women, we can be perceived as white, but we don't even belong to that. And she expressed it because she recalled her grandmother, who didn't look Jewish, and that saved her life during the Second World War. And so she worked a lot to look very bourgeois, this Parisian woman, for people not to say she was Jewish, right?
So she was passing.
Yeah.
She was white passing.
Exactly. And you wouldn't imagine that, because, so Jewish people that's also the thing. Jewish people can look, to me at least, I feel like they can look like anyone else, because you have Jewish people in Eastern Europe, in Russia, in North Africa, in Middle East, everywhere. So there is not
Jewish
one way. Yeah, but they make you believe that this Jewish look, probably you will look like, if you're Northern African, you will look like Northern African. So but probably, I don't know. I need to ask a Jewish person for that. But it's not like when I'm walking on the street, I'm like, oh, you're Jewish. Me.
You know what? I can say here for in the States that there is this idea of what Jewish people look like. And I remember my first college roommate who was ethnically Jewish, but she did not practice Judaism. And she had what is quintessentially what we would say, yes, that person is definitely Jewish. And so it's the coloring and the kind of curlier hair. And then it's a color. It's a coloring that's there. And then just the features, like with the nose and fuller lips. There is this person, I can tell, definitely ethnically Jewish. But then there are other Jewish people I've met here in the States, and they just look like white folk to me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So the range is vast. And it's not the first story I hear about a Jewish grandmother saying to her granddaughter, oh my God, you should straighten your hair to look less Jewish, make your hair blonde to look less Jewish, or get a nose job or something. And this is not the first story. But the thing is, this Parisian woman thing is so much now co-opted by white passing people that makes you even forget your own identity sometimes. When you are white passing, I feel that's the feeling I have. I may be wrong, but this is the feeling I have when I see some people now.
Yeah, and I think that's the big problem with assimilationist theory, right? That you are to forget who you are, where you came from, and what struggles your people have had to get you where you are, so that you can fit into this little nice tight mold. And that, I think, is the destruction of humanity, because if you cut your roots out from under you, then you're just waiting to be blown away by any strong wind. And because you can't assimilate forever, and you can't assimilate in every way, because eventually kids are going to come. So DNA doesn't go away with hair straightener. And so it's like, eventually the Pied Piper's going to come calling. I think that just hearing that this beauty standard is the French woman, and she is a myth. And I love that she is a marketing tool. She is a marketing concept that has become held on a pedestal for everyone to say, oh, I wish that I could be that. That I can buy what she wears, I can live how but so it's really about the devil himself, capitalism.
Yeah, it's exactly this. And that's why she sells so well abroad. That's why when you see foreigners, when It's not there is a reason why foreigners, when they come to France, they only talk about Paris, because also France is a very centralizing type of government. So everything is around Paris. And then you have the rest of France, right? Usually tourists, when you hear about people, when I say to people I'm French, and they always like, oh, I love Paris. No, I'm not from Paris.
Because France is a whole country. Paris is a
yeah.
Yeah, most people do. They just think Paris.
Yeah, so I'm just like, would you reduce your country to one town, please? Please, do you do that? So why are you doing that? And I know it's a marketing tool, but I'm like, people just try to and learn things. Yeah. The marketing tool that the French woman, the macaron, and by the way, that food you are eating is so French. It comes from south of France, please. There is all this misconception about France just being Paris, and the Parisian woman applies to it.
Yes, bolsters that thought and belief system that France is only Paris, and that's it. No countryside, no Provence, no mountainous region, nothing. It's just the city of Paris. And that's weird that even the country would want to perpetuate something like that. It's so limiting.
But it brings money, and I think it's not just, it brings money to them, and it's a cultural thing, because culture in France is a very bourgeois thing. You would say to me that everywhere culture is bourgeois, but I can argue about that, because if you go to other places like Italy, for example, a taxi driver can talk to you about literature, right? Mm-hmm. A cleaning lady can do too.
But so in Paris, that's not a thing?
No, because your taxi driver, first of all, is a Tunisian, is African, your cleaning lady also is an immigrant. In Italy, it is happening a little bit, but starting to change a little bit. But your taxi driver is still from the place, and he will tell you the story of the place like nobody. And the story of, I don't know, one of the most well-known Italian writer, they can tell.
Yeah. Because they're well-read and all of those things. And so is it more like social class versus, I don't know how I'm trying to say this, because it feels to me that Paris is about appearances more so than actual depth or...
It's both, unfortunately. It's both.
Okay.
Absence of depth, but still you still have a culture and depth. It's yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the culture sounds, I don't know. I studied French for 4 years. Ask me to speak it. No, not even happening. I read a little bit, right? I can read a fair amount, but I don't remember how to speak it well. But just thinking about, I remember thinking, boy, it would be so great to live in Paris, right? Mm-hmm. It'd be so wonderful to visit Paris and stay a couple of years there, and this, that, and the third. And it never dawned on me until I got older and I was reading more and studying more that the rest of France is like beautiful and has as much culture, if not more, because there's more depth to it. It seems to me that Paris is somewhat like New York, superficial and superfluous.
But I think it's also due to, so it's not just about fashion. Actually, if you look at our literature, for example, a lot of the writers from 19th century, you see a heroine that is from the country coming to the big city that is Paris and trying to live there. So a lot of our stories are based around that, coming to Paris and living in Paris. And so obviously, if you are someone studying French abroad and they make you study the classics, you will have that vision, right?
Yeah.
That Paris is the epicenter of the country. So I know there are other writers that don't write about necessarily being in Paris, that wrote something else, but I guess that a lot of authors that are studied abroad centers the story a lot on Paris. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know what you studied when you studied French, but maybe that could be the case. That's why you may have seen Paris as the place.
Yes, indeed. It was back in like the 80s through 90s, right? Look, middle school and through high school, I went all the way through and got AP French 4 or 5. And yeah, I graduated high school in 93.
Yeah.
And you were born in 87. That part. And it was a lot of we had to read classic novels because we had to. And it was a lot of Paris. And I was just like enamored. I was enamored, especially I'm here in South Carolina and I'm thinking, oh my God, Paris is definitely where I want to be. I can do this, I can do that, all the little shops and da da da. I was just thinking about all the, but every time we speak, I get a new image of not only Paris, but of France. And I think, if nothing else, looking at it through the eyes of a fashion writer, because fashion is what Paris is known for, and people only associate France with Paris, so people think France is the fashion center of the world. Yeah. And just looking at it through your eyes, and then you tie all this personal stuff in. Now that's where I want to go. Where you say that, so you got to France when you were 12?
Yes.
Yeah, preteen. And so you are trying to decide where you fit in because, hey, I'm Cameroonian, I'm French, and they're like, you can't be French and something else.
But so the thing is, sorry to interrupt you, is I've always known it was possible. It's like when you're in your house, some things are like that in your house. You are used to that, and it's not an issue. As soon as you set a foot in the door out of the house, this is where you start to see, oh, actually, people are perceiving me in another way where for me it's normal, but for them it's not. So I didn't have that issue because when you live in, like I said, when I was living in Cameroon, when you see the student, so I went to a French school, which is a privilege because it costs money. And it's usually people that, has a privilege that goes to that go to this school. But still around me, the people I had, there were 90% of the school was Black. So I was the majority, first of all. It wasn't a problem for me. I was the majority in school. I was the majority when I went out. There is nothing where I was like, oh, this person is bizarre. No.
How amazing is that?
First,
I've never had that experience. So how amazing is that?
But to be the majority, like nobody questioning why you like this or something, nobody. So there's this thing. And then also the fact that I saw a different type of people, like Greek people, like I said, Lebanese people. So I also see different type of complexion, different type of Middle Eastern people look or things like this. So I wasn't unaware that people looked different. Also, I was just like, and also in Cameroon, also the national TV, they show a lot of Brazilian series or Bollywood film movies. So you see people from different cultures and you're like, yeah, it's not our culture, but we still see something different. And it's not American series, for example, or you still have the American series yet, but you still have these other series that make you see the world differently. So when I came back to France, I was just like, so these people think I'm a savage, but I was like, you are, because you don't know nothing about the world.
I cannot laugh with you like I want to. Oh. My gosh, they thought you were a savage, and you're like, no, you are the savage. Very little about.
Yeah, like I remember the first week I went to school back to France. I said to my parents, I went back home. I was like, can we please go back? Because I don't understand. These are savages. I don't know that. I don't know about that. I don't want to live with them.
Oh, my word. I love this. I absolutely love everything coming out of your mouth right now. Wow. Okay. So they knew very little about anything. So very insular is what I'm getting. And what made you finally decide, then I guess I must assimilate?
I guess it's when you're a teen, I think you just want to, at some point, assimilate. But I say assimilate, but there was always something. There was always something going on. So I didn't, for example, I didn't tell my friend because nobody asked me the question where I was from, right? I wasn't speaking about it. The only thing what we did, maybe my father came after because I had some bullying incidents. And my father came in the school to present some arts coming from Cameroon, explain because my father is very also straightforward. He says, since you call my daughter a savage, let me show you what the savages do. Right?
Is that where you get it? Is that where you get it?
27%. Any guesses what that number means? Is it the number of people in the US that listen to podcasts? Actually, that number is 24% in 2017. That number has increased exponentially up to 64% in 2023. Podcasting continues to be on the rise. It is the place to be. Only 27% of podcasts are hosted by women. Only 27%. Are you as shocked as I was? Just think of all the voices we are missing. Is your voice one of those? Is there a topic you keep thinking about? A message you know needs to be shared? Guests you know you want to interview? Or maybe you're an entrepreneur and you know that you want to help others get to know you better and know what you do. Podcasting is the way to do it. This is why I founded Authentic Connections Network. A podcast network that is so much more than you'd imagine. We take the tech and stress out of podcasting. We give you the power of a network, the power of community, of education around podcasting, of coaching, individualized supports, and all the other incredible women breaking through and changing the landscape of podcasting. Isn't it time you realize your dream? We believe strongly in our creators. We believe in Shawn and in Black Writers Therapy. There are conversations that need to happen, stories that need to be told. An Authentic Connection Network is the place for them. Follow us on Instagram at 37by27. Comment the word amplify on any of our posts or DM it if that feels better to you. I want to learn more about you and your goals and how maybe you could be part of Authentic Connections.
Oh my God, yeah, definitely. So it was like, so this is the piece of art from Cameroon and this is what it is for. But it was like, there is a significance in everything. So if you think my daughter is a savage, please.
Right. Correct yourself.
Exactly.
Look in the mirror.
Exactly.
Look in the mirror.
So there was so I probably are similar in the sense that, at some point, every teen they have, I don't know, I remember I had a period where I was listening to punk rock, a period where I was listening to metal music. So obviously your style of clothing is also influenced by that. But I always had something like, I don't know, earrings or rings or bracelets that would tell you anyway, this is some people would say, oh, this is a very peculiar piece of jewelry. And I was like, yeah, it comes from this country because my father spent a lot of time in Central Africa. So he brought a lot of things and he loved jewelry. So obviously my mother and I had a lot of pieces of jewelry and people were always intrigued by that. Right. So I was like, yeah, this piece comes from this country and this other country. But they were just like, oh, you're well-traveled. And I was like, yeah, actually, I'm well-traveled.
Yes. Question. Just this idea of the exotic. You said something about the exotic and how you're supposed to relegate your roots to the exotic. I hate that word.
I hate that word too.
Yes. Okay. I think I learned that was not a great word. It's not a compliment. It isn't anything that you want to be called. It isn't anything that you want to see any person of color, especially a woman of color, especially a Black woman of color called. Because the only thing I can frame in my mind when I hear the word exotic, I just see Sarah Bart. Yeah. And there is this kind of visceral reaction that bubbles up in me when I hear it, because I'm like, what's exotic about being a woman?
Yeah. So I don't remember who said that, but there was this, maybe a friend of my father who is also Cameroonian, who said that you white people, you think we are exotic, but when you come to our little villages, when we haven't seen any white person, you are the exotic person there. You are, because you don't just think that we are exotic, but you are too.
Like even more,
not,
and that's what I think, like even more so than, because I don't change colors.
no.
I don't have that ability, not really. And I'm just like, there's so much more exotic about you than there would ever be about me. And why can't you recognize that?
Yeah, the exotic word when I used it was in reference to that French fashion blogger. And because when I reread that book where she talked about style and everything and how she described her grandmother, I was like, is she all right? Is she all right? Because you think from your eyes, you may perceive it as a shackle of traditions, but actually I think everyone thinks fashion is an Occidental thing, but fashion happens everywhere. People dress in everywhere in the world. It's not just European thing. You might think that your grandmother was tied by traditions and being modest and everything, but when you go and dive deep into the history of, I don't know, Muslim women in North Africa, you can see that some things they did in terms of style is not tied to tradition and shackles. It's tied to freedom and liberty, how they perceive themselves as independent women. So I was just like, do you know something about your place? Because before telling this about your grandmother, I'm like,
that part, yeah. Okay, archetype. There's something else that I wanted to ask you about that. You said that you had been mocked for your looks. And because I know where you're going, but I want the listening audience to hear, because you said your dad had to come by and show the art. So what were like some of the mocking? What was that wrapped up in? Your style?
It was the mocking is like, oh, do you have phones there? Did you live in a house? And about my looks is, oh, you look like a monkey, because obviously this is always where they go. The monkey thing.
Boo, bananas, you're so lame. That's so tired. Stop with that. Boo, I'm sorry. That's me being very immature. And see, here's the thing. And this is why I think it's so important for Black women, regardless of where Black women, we have these similar
experiences. Yeah.
Yes, because I can't even tell you how many times I was a monkey.
I don't even know what to say, because I'm like,
exactly. I can't tell you. And this was like, I can't tell you how many times I was called an African booty scratcher, because I've always had big lips.
Yeah, the lips were the thing. The lips.
And now everybody wants this, right? Everyone's going out getting butt fat fillers. But yes, and so to be called a monkey,
yeah,
or even to be called Black at some point was like, ooh, don't call me that. Like it's crazy.
So the French word for Black is noir. So you see people, that's so ridiculous too. People, when you feel like, oh, don't say she's noir. She's Black. In France, sometimes some people would say, oh, cette fille Black là. Like they would use the English word to be more polite. And I'm like, use the word. You created that word. Get it.
Hey. And so, and the English word in America, Black is always capitalized if you're referring to Black people, because it's about the people. And I'm like, do you do that for Black French people? Do you do that for Black Italian people? Do they capitalize the B?
But like there were a time where they were afraid of saying the word noir. So I was just like, that is very strange. And there was also, I remember, so in 1988, we had the World Cup and France won. And so the team who won, there were North Africans, Black Africans, and French people there. So the team was called Black, Blanc, Beurre. Black, white, and butter for North Africans.
Butter?
Yeah.
I'm over it. I'm over it. Black, Blanc, Beurre.
Yeah, and they called it the France Black Blanc Beurre, and they were very proud because for them it was how we won, So we are all united. And they always said that's also quite the opposite of, because France is known to be very colorblind. They want to be not colorblind. But when you see this and you're like, yeah, as soon as there is something, you always see the color. But then when we pointed to you that you are ostracizing people and you become colorblind.
Yes, yes. And so do the white French people see themselves as a race?
No, that's the issue. That's the issue.
See, that's what I'm saying. These conversations have to start happening more frequently because that's the same issue here.
Because if you call them white, they're so offended. And I'm like, but you call me black. What's the problem? And they're like, I just don't like being called white because I'm more than a white person.
I'm French, and that's what I'm American. A white American.
Mm.
Then why can't I just be an American?
Yeah, so that's really,
yeah. Why do I have to have a hyphen and you don't have to have a hyphen? And so that's why I'm saying this is, I feel, yes, you could be my baby sister.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been raised on different continents, obviously, in different countries by different people, but yet we have these very similar
experiences. Yeah.
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 Because
so was it healing?
Racism came from here. Race came from here. It didn't come from the US. It came directly from Europe and they exported it.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yes. And so obviously the head of the snake is still biting because the tail is whipping something fierce over here. And so, yeah, it's, yeah. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say to any of that.
If the piece was healing, you asked me?
I did.
Yes, it was healing. First of all, it was healing reading these books like Je ne suis pas parisienne. It was healing to read that because after all, it's a white Jewish woman that is writing it. And she really tried to look at it from all the angles. So I was like, because if it was a Black person writing it,
yeah,
I was happy to see that. And my piece, when I wrote it, it was liberating. Now that I publish it in English rather than in Italian. In Italian, I didn't, yes, people enjoyed it, but there was no reflection, let's say. No people coming back with reflection. Whereas here, because Substack enables you to leave comments like on our blog. So it was quite interesting to see the reaction on people over it and the sharing, because I was surprised. Some of my readers are Asian women and they could recognize themselves in it. So it's not a question of color, it's a question of experiences.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that may be the title of your show. That's beautiful. It's not a question of color. It's a question of experiences. Nice. And I can honestly say that we have similar, I think BIPOC women in general, wherever we are, we have these similar experiences.
Yeah. I completely agree.
And white women, wherever they are, they have the similar experiences. And again, I didn't even consider that was a thing, but it is a thing that white women everywhere are foisted up on this pedestal as being the standard of all things: beauty, intelligence, classiness, luxury, all the things. And I'm like, but why? Why and how? And I know why, I know how, and I know, and I'm still like, why and how?
Yeah.
Because my brain won't let me accept what I know, because I think it knows that's not true.
That's not right. No, that's not right. But it's a question of unlearning. That's why I'm so happy that the piece resonated with people that were, yes, BIPOC, but also I was seeing like white women. I was like, white women that didn't recognize themselves in that stereotype, because, yeah, it's not only about skin color, or it's also about social class. The Parisian woman belongs to a certain class. Not all women belongs to our rich, for example. It's also a question of culture. Not everyone is well read, and it depends on, again, about on the social class you belong to. So I guess at the end of the day, this stereotype is harming the whole population, all people, not just me, but a whole lot of people. Because there's also the stereotype of the girl from the South, which is seen as much more vulgar, speaking with a certain accent. She's sometimes not well presented in the media.
Okay.
And so there is a critique about that too. So it's quite interesting to see that this Parisian woman is actually a flawed concept, because it doesn't, even white women at the end of the day are affected by it in a negative way.
So it's like Barbie.
Yeah.
And I'm not like downplaying anything. It's just, it's like Barbie. Everybody wants to be Barbie, but then when you look at her dimensions and put them on a human body, she wouldn't be able to support herself. And I think that's exactly the same situation with this Parisian woman. There's no way she could be like, and even though they find women who could look like that, I don't know that's really.
Yeah, you have women, but they are always the same. We have women that look like that and embody that stereotype, but because they look a certain way and belong to a certain social class, and they co-opt to that vision too. But they are also very few. You don't have 10,000 of them. They are very few. That's also why it's not sustainable, because they are not representative of more people. They're just representative of a certain. It's social class.
Right.
It's always social
like
class.
The 1%, and yeah, very good. Thank you so much. That was a lot to unpack, and I don't even know that we unpacked most of it, but I think we gave it a good shot. So thank you. Thank you a lot. So we still have time, girl. I know it's late, but we still have stuff to go through. I want to ask you one of my stock questions. What is it that you hope to achieve with your writing?
So I've always written because writing for me is cathartic. But the more I started writing, when I started this Instagram, like I said, when I saw the reaction, I was like, wow, people are telling me their stories in DM, telling me things very personal about their experiences as Black people in Europe, or even white people started understanding maybe something about their family member, but getting interested. I was just like, wow, this is something I haven't seen when I was growing up. So it was quite interesting. So it was this dialogue with the people that I enjoyed, and the fact that they shared experiences with me that makes me understand that, first of all, I wasn't alone, but above all, that it was needed, because everyone said, yes, we have the Black American experience, but what about mine? In my context, I need to have my context. I need to have things that pertains to my Blackness in the French context, in the Italian context, in the German context. They needed this type of information. It was very interesting. And then people, by giving me their personal stories too, sometimes they also added the historical facts. So it was very enriching. So what I would like to achieve with my writing maybe is to keep that connection and people enriching each other.
Yeah. You sound like a cultural archivist. Tell me your stories. Give them to me. I'll share mine, you share yours. Yeah, and you're just collecting like all of these bits and pieces. There's a book coming somewhere. I feel it. Just a beautiful book of essays and anecdotal stories that have come in through.
But because this is what I do in my family, like this is how I was raised. My dad loves genealogy. So he did on his family side, and he did on my mom's side. So at home we have plenty of pictures of my father's family, and then you have few pictures of my mother's family, but we try to look for stories. I'm always like, because with my father, if I ask him, okay, what happened when you were young, he would tell me, oh, in this year, da-da-da. If I ask my mom, it's much more complicated. I need to have her emotional for her to start telling me stuff. Yeah, I cannot tell her, okay, what happened in 1970? No, it cannot happen that way for her. She needs to have another trigger, an emotional trigger to start telling me things. And this is the most difficult part about telling my mom's family story, because with my father is 79. People don't realize, but when your dad is this, and I'm 36, I'm not 50, because my father has other children who are in their 50s, but I'm 36. So there is a big generational gap that I consider to be a richness. Because he has lived through so many decades that showed me how France was. He was born when France was an empire. He grew up when France was a colonial empire, right?
Wow.
So all these things, it's important to understand how he built himself, how he ended up working in Africa for so many years, and maybe why today we are here with him. All these things are super important. On my mom's side, it's much more difficult because I need to find moments with my mom. It's always, I need to have my phone always with me, because as soon as she says something interesting, I'm like, here, record.
Exactly. Exactly. Wow. But you do plan to get as much from your mom's history as possible.
Yeah, because I want my nephew and my niece to understand where they are from, because my nephew and niece are white passing. So they don't look black at all. And like I see now, for them, it's normal. Like my nephew is 5 years old now. He's 5 years old. And my niece now she's 7 months. And when I see my nephew coming home, it's normal. Grandma is black, auntie is black, dad is mixed. He doesn't even question it. And what is funny though, when you ask him about the shades we have, he sees my brother and I in the same shade.
Isn't that interesting?
It's so interesting. But when I said, but don't I have the same color as grandma? He says, no, you don't. And you don't look like grandma, you look like dad.
But your brother has coloring of a biracial person. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Is your mother darker than you?
Oh, you guys are the same skin tone. So we were having, I don't know, it was lunch. We were having lunch. And I don't know how the topic came out. And he was like, oh, but dad and auntie, you look alike and you have the same skin color. And my brother and I, we looked at each other like, for him, yes, they are different shades and he doesn't understand it. So that's why I want to collect many stories of my family for him and my niece when they both are older, to understand where they are from, because I am afraid it can be lost.
Now we are going to move into our second segment, and this is a really brief segment because it's just one question. I like to celebrate the audacity that Black women writers have. And I feel like there has to be a level of audacity for Black women to say, I'm going to write words on page and put them out there in the world for everyone to read. And I know it's going to be judged. I know it's going to be critiqued. I know it may or may not be well accepted or accepted at all. I think there's a level of audacity that we have to do it, and not just do it, but do it well and have it thrive and take on a life of its own. So I'm going to ask you, Emanuelle, what or who gave you the audacity to think that you, a Cameroonian-French girl, could infiltrate the fashion industry and have the audacity to write about it and be well received in doing so?
My parents.
You're just going to give me my parents? My parents. And?
Yeah. So my parents, because first of all, when I was growing up, I was not interested in fashion, first of all. I entered the industry because I'm curious. And for me, it's an industry that touches so many topics. You have a little bit of history, you have a little bit of art, you have design. It's interesting in that sense for me. So I was like, it touches everything. But why I said my parents is probably because at home, I realized each time I needed something to work, I had to write something about whatever, what can I say, perfumes. My dad is like, I have this book about perfumes. Is it good for your research? Then I need to do research on Dior. I have this book about Christian Dior. I was like, how Did I not?
Why do you have all these books about these very kind of esoteric things? Because not everybody's studying Christian Dior.
Yeah. So my dad is always, oh, if you need some books about something, let me know. I have a look. And he would, I'm like, so all these kind of things. So yes. And my mom, because she's very in the details. Like when she goes out somewhere, the headscarf has to be this way, not this way. The lipstick is this tint, not this tint, all in the details. So
yes,
when I started working in fashion, I was like, so my parents are so funny because they said they like classic style, but they are the most eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I was like, I cannot be just classic when, you know, I have you both as my parents, because you are not, you like, because my dad is usually dressed in a suit. He likes suits. I barely saw my father wearing jeans or something. He was always in a suit, right? But you, I don't know, the way he tells you the story when he bought that suit in 1976, whatever, in which store, makes it a special suit. Right. So it's never, or my mom, when she's lying about to my dad that she has bought something 17 years ago when she actually bought it yesterday, but my dad is faking to buy the story, and she's telling the story of the piece.
I love that. Yes, they're storytellers themselves.
Yeah.
Natural storytellers.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then fashion. I don't know, because I don't in fashion. When I was growing up in fashion in France, nobody looked at me. So there's no one I can pinpoint as a Black person that inspired me to be into the fashion industry. And even a white French person, I cannot imagine, because French fashion, yes, it's interesting, but the people, do I find them interesting? I don't know. I don't know about that.
Not so much, but fashion, when you say that you are a fashion writer, like I listened to you read your piece. It almost seems like you're writing through fashion, and that fashion is, how am I going to say this? Fashion is an aspect of culture that allows you to write about something bigger.
Yes, that's fashion. Exactly it. I just use fashion as it's a backdrop, let's say it like that way. It's a backdrop. And then it enables me to, look for something else. Like, for example, right now, I'm thinking about writing that piece about, because there's these fashion designers that made this show about to protest against what is happening in Palestine. And they used this headscarf that they wear in the Middle East as a motif of their collection. And yes, it's fashion, but I was like, I'm going to do a piece about the keffiyeh to just know the history behind it.
Right. Is that like the hijab?
Yeah, it's male wearing it. Male.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And so I'm just like, I'm going to do a piece about, I'm going to take the show as the starting point. But I'm going to open historical facts and talking about resistance in Palestine, because I'm not even interested in doing fashion reviews. I'm not interested in that. There are people that can do it, and it's fine for them to do it. But for me, I'm not interested in writing about, I went to this show and it was like this. I'm not interested in that. It's more, like the cultural value that fashion brings to the world. That's what I want to do.
That's beautiful. I think that you found a really unique niche, and that's really important in writing. I know that for a fact, is having your niche, and it's small enough that I've not read like fashion writing that uses fashion allegorically in the way that you do, but you do it beautifully. And I learn a lot. Like I learned a lot, and I do want you to. It's on your Substack, so I'll just go read it for myself on your Substack, because I need to read stuff for myself to get all the meat of it. But yeah, I absolutely adore what you're doing. And I think you will accomplish exactly what you set out to do with your writing.
Hopefully.
And make sure you thank your parents. They sound great. They sound absolutely great. And so thank them for giving you that audacity, because you wear it well too. If people could see, like you wear your audacity very well. You're quite lovely, and good for you. Good for you for having it.
Thank you.
Okay, Miss Ma'am, are you ready for this game?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay, it's my cheer. It's my silent cheer. Okay, do you remember your hashtags? I do. I'm going to pay for this. Laughing with you. I'm going to pay for it, but it's worth it. It is worth it. Okay, your hashtags are writer's life, writing while Black, and hashtag it really happened.
Okay.
Okay, here's my trusty timer.
Okay.
Okay. And you have between 5 and 10 seconds. So I'm going to set it for.
Oh. How can I do that?
I'm going to say, as long as you start, you're fine. As long as you start before my timer goes off, then you're good. Yeah. Last year, people were like, oh, God, I don't want to. I'm scared. And I didn't even have a timer. So this year I thought, or this season, I thought, oh, get a timer. Let's really bring on the pain. Let me come up with these words for you. Okay. I'm choosing very arbitrary words here.
Oh my gosh. Can you please just tell me the last hashtag, what it was?
It really did happen.
Okay.
Okay, we're almost done. Oh my gosh, I'm having these words are not going to be easy because they are all over the place. Sorry, Emanuelle.
I tried.
Oh, they are horrible. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Look. Okay, come on, Kitty Witty. Your first word. Are you ready? Your first word is machine.
That's my writer's life.
Okay.
Machine is being able to produce a piece once a week for my Substack, but machine also because I'm such a slow writer, so I'm such a bad machine.
Bad machine. Okay, you're getting 5 seconds because I think you got this. I'm doing 3 for you. I think you got this on lock. You're a bad machine. That was good because I would not have thought of anything. Trust me. Okay. Your next word is animal.
Ooh.
There, I'm giving you 3 seconds, girl, because you're doing good. There you go.
Animal. Oh, what animal? I can just think of Lion King. Sorry. And it's not even.
No, ma'am. I need an anecdotal story.
Around an animal? Oh my gosh, yes. When we were living in Cameroon, I had one day, came back from school, saw in the garden something black running out, and it was just a chimpanzee that my dad decided to bring home. And we had a chimpanzee home.
What?
And she was called Josephine.
Hashtag
it really did happen.
First one to use that hashtag. Oh my God, you guys had a chimpanzee. You know what? I'm done. I can't do the timer. I'm not, it's too much. Okay. That's crazy. A chimpanzee named Josephine.
Yeah.
Okay. Your next word is risque.
Risque. I think that writing while you're Black woman is risque in a way.
Wow. You are killing it, Emanuelle. Writing while being a Black woman is... I don't even know how to say that.
Yeah, I think it's risque because, okay, so for example, the woman I told you before, like Rebecca Stevens A on Substack, writing Diary of a Black Woman in a White World, she is telling all about her racist experiences. in Switzerland, and it's a risky thing. And she said it hasn't been easy for her to write it because at work, your colleague, when they know your newsletter, the kind of look they can have after reading your thoughts, your real thoughts that you don't express at work because it's work.
Right. Oh, that part, writing truthfully as a Black woman is extremely risky.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I think it's not easy. They like it when you write because, you write in a certain way that is palatable. But as soon as it is not palatable, or you get all the names, right?
Yes.
You get all the attacks because this is not how they want to read what you wrote. But would they say that to another white author, white writer? They won't. They would just say, oh, I don't like your writing, and that's it. They wouldn't go so deep.
No, they wouldn't get so up in arms about it. You're right. Okay, your next word is equality.
Right of life. Pay me my right wage. That's it.
That's it. Pay me what I'm worth. Because it's ubiquitous. They don't want to pay. They don't want to pay like they pay everybody else. Chase. Like I chase after da 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 da.
I know that. Is that the next word?
It is.
Oh my God. What? Chase? It really did happen. I was chased by a dog. Because I'm just so afraid of dog, and like an idiot, I started running, and that dog ran after me because I started running.
Yes, that's the first rule. Don't run, because they will chase. Hashtag it really did happen. Hamper.
How do you say?
Hamper.
Hamper?
I told you these words were horrible.
Hamper? What does that mean?
To have something, it's synonymous with hinder. Like, oh, he hampered me. That hampered me.
His life hampered me, thinking that I could not make it in writing because English is not my first language. So you think a lot that you are not able to write truthfully because it's not your mother tongue. So there's a feeling of maybe I don't have imposter syndrome, but at the beginning I would feel like, oh, this person's work is much worse than mine because they are native and where I'm not.
Very good. Very good. Before you get my bonus word, is liberty.
Life liberty is to write freely. And yes, you can give me, your topic, but let me write completely about it. No, don't restrict me. Don't completely rewrite what I meant. Right. Because sometimes editors tend to do that. And it isn't what I meant.
Yeah, they take your voice out of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any advice for aspiring freelance writers?
Any advice? I'd say that right now is not easy. So it's not an advice, but it's easy being a freelance writer. I'd say that for me now, actually, it's now that my writing career is actually starting. I've been writing for a long time, but it is now that I'm reaping the fruit. So also be patient. And when I say reaping the fruit, it's not even the fruit. I'm just seeing the first flowers.
Okay. So be patient and be grateful. Have gratitude celebrate the wins, right?
Yeah. And have another job on the side. And keep on writing.
Keep your day job.
Yes. Yeah, keep your day job. Keep your day job if you can. But just build on that practice.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. So fashion writing industry. I'm the whole fashion writing industry. And you get to tell me anything you think I need to know that I don't already know.
Because I've never been part of a legacy magazine, and thank God, because I'd never want to do that. I'm happy to work with independent magazine because actually I found that some of the people give you the freedom, give you right stories, give you the right people to interview. Yeah, so I don't believe in legacy. So what I would say to fashion industry writing is that I don't believe in your legacy bullshit, because your legacy Sorry, I swear. Because your legacy is built on privilege. That's it. It's built on privilege. Why people in fashion are paid so much, especially writers, is because the people who used to write, they didn't need a salary. They came from money. So obviously they didn't, if you didn't give them a paycheck or you paid them miserably, it was fine for them. But today has changed. Make that, I don't believe in that. And I also don't believe you can be truthful in legacy, writing for legacy magazines, because you have advertisers and advertisers, their brands. You cannot write honestly. I don't believe so. Even though they want to make you feel you can write honestly. As soon as you are paid by a brand, I don't believe so. But
yeah, very good. Well, okay. I'm glad I'm really not them, because all right. Here is my last bonus word. And then, as every good therapy session ends with homework, I will give you yours, because I am an unlicensed therapist here. And I take that very seriously. If you could give me one yuck and one yum about anything.
One yuck and one yum. One yuck is what is happening to Palestinians at the moment. I am appalled by the situation. I am appalled by the behaviors of the governments, especially in countries that are, we like freedom. Appalled by the way they just see their interests. And they let the genocide happen as if it was normal. Yeah, this is my big yuck. That's a big, not even yuck, it's a bleh.
Yeah, and perfect sound effect, because that's exactly what it is. You're right.
It disgusts me to the highest. Yeah, my yum right now, I say my nephew and niece.
Okay. That's sweet. That's sweet.
No, it's because they are in my brain at the moment, because I'm thinking about writing a children's book for them about our family story. That's why.
Oh, I love that. Anytime you write a family story, like, it's just a beautiful gift. They'll keep that forever.
Yeah, that's why. So I just want to. So that's why they are I'm not overbearing auntie. I'm just like the cool auntie. That's not me. That's my nephew who said so.
Yeah, no, I believe it. I used to be the cool auntie, like back in the day.
You still are.
No, I mean, because they're all old now.
So it would be Lola Akinmade Akestrom. This is this Nigerian Swedish writer that I've discovered on Diary of a Black Woman, White World, Substack. She did a podcast with her, and I've been just mesmerized by her vision, by the way she writes, and I haven't even read her books to tell.
Wow. Okay, and yet you're recommending her. So this podcast must have been really good. I'm going to check out Diary of a Black Woman Living in a White World. I'm checking that Substack out on your recommendation, and I'm going to reach out to Miss Lola and see if I can get her on the podcast.
Because I think she has a way to write her characters, the way she described the way she wrote her characters, the way they evolve. Because obviously the book she wrote it's not her first one. And when I listened to it, I was like, girl, I'm going to buy your first book, your second book, whatever you write.
I'm buying all the books. Not that I have time to read them right now. Because I know I have so many books on my TBR. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the reading list I think, if you are a writer, your reading list is always, long.
Yes, it needs to be. You would hope, right? You would hope that as a writer, you have a long reading list. What else do I need to? Yes, now we're getting ready to wrap everything up. Can you tell the people how they can get in touch with you, or where they can read your work? Any of that.
You can get in touch with me on Substack at Le Journal de Curioso .substack.com. Le Journal. In French, I don't know what to say. And
I'm going to link it. in the show notes. Yes.
I'm just realizing that the name I chose is not easy, but that's okay. And then you can find me also on Instagram with that same complicated name.
Okay. I'll link that too.
The Journal de Curioso, and that's it.
Okay. Very good. It has been awesome hanging with you as always, and for sharing so much of yourself with
It was
us.
fun. It was fun. Thank you so much.
Very good. Very good. I will let you know exactly when your show will air, and I will get out promotional materials to you right around then.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
All righty. I'm going to go and let you go and have a great, what time is it there?
It's almost 6.
In the
Almost 6
evening?
p.m. in the evening. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Look, I think my cat's sitting on my phone. No, he isn't. Yeah, it's 11:52.
Yeah, you have the whole day. It's the end of the
I
day
do.
for me.
I do. I do. I'm going to go ahead and go and get the rest of my day started. It was great, Emanuelle, and I'll put all of your stuff down and make sure that we're doing promotions for you. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
Thank you, Vicky. It was such a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Black Writer Therapy Podcast. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and download our episodes. To my aspiring writers, remember, this is a journey, and every rewrite takes you closer to where you desire to be. And our industry allies, let's keep those gates open, shall we? The Black Writer Therapy Podcast is accepting requests for affinity collaborative partnerships. Contact Vicki Binkley Brown if your company or organization is interested in participating. I'm Shawn, host and unlicensed therapist of the Black Writer Therapy Podcast, reminding you to be kindest to yourself first, always and in all ways. Until next week.